is tip-off from Phoenix, Arizona. We're going old school technically. We'll see if it works any better today. Back to the basics. We'll silver the NBA. It's opposite day in Jazz World. And we'll look at what happened last night. Cleveland, Chris Paul, and some injuries to Phoenix. It's all coming up on today's edition of Tip-Off. Good morning. I don't know if this is going to work better than it has in the past, but I'm going to try something here today. I'm going to try to go old school and just talk to you this way and see whether or not the quality is better. We've had some technical difficulties on the road recently. I struggle if I don't have headphones in my ear with all weird things. I don't know how I actually talk to real people in life. Welcome to Phoenix, by the way, to the nice couple that I met in West Virginia. You just have to take this moment, or from West Virginia. Take this moment. Whee! I'm wearing shorts. She was convinced that I do this in my hotel room. I don't know. That's what she said. So I just thought I'd give him a shout out. It was a very nice couple, met after the game. The other day, he's doing his residency in West Virginia, so just thought I'd throw that out there. All right, it is Locked On. It is Tip-Off. You can follow us on Facebook at David Locke, as well as Locked On Sports. You can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sports. And special thanks to all the guys in the Google Plus community who do such great work. Questions are open for you to throw those in there if you want to. But let's dig into the NBA 5. First thing on the NBA 5 today that I wanted to jump in on is just quick few notes from last night. Cleveland crushed the Clippers. I mean, it looks like we're heading for an Atlanta-Cleveland Eastern Conference Final, which really gets to be kind of a rematch of last year's Spurs-Miami. It's the team versus the stars, and it's pretty darn interesting to see how that plays out along the way there. But Cleveland has clicked in, and even if you recall, Cleveland kind of clicked in against us. But even if you recall, if you go back before that and our tip-off on that day, I made the point to everybody that their starting lineups, when they have had their big three on the floor, have been fine. It was just they had no bench and they had no depth to what they were doing, and so that's where they were losing games. But if you looked at kind of dug into Cleveland's numbers and lineups and things like that, they were fine. Like it was there. They just had to figure it out. And they were fine whenever LeBron played. So now that they got some depth during that, from getting Mozgov and J.R. Smith, and really, frankly, got rid of Dion Waiters is a huge plus. Now all of a sudden, you couple that with the fact that their lineups are good and they have some players on the backside of it. They're really fabulous. I mean, you can start trying to break them down, and I wouldn't. I guess is what I would say is. They're terrific. Obviously, the loss of Anderson Varejao knocked them back, but you start digging in here on some of their lineups right now, guys. Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Kevin Love, Sean Marion, Tristan Thompson, right? Okay, so that's just a regular old lineup. That lineup's plus 28 per 100 possessions. Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Kevin Love, Timothy Mozgov, J.R. Smith, their new lineup is plus 20. They've only played 11 games here. They're plus 20. Kyrie, the big three with Tristan Thompson, and even Dion Waiters was plus 24. I mean, though you put those three guys on the floor together, they've been fine. They're three of the best players in the NBA. Cleveland's not only fine, they're dominant, and they have seemingly clicked in. The issue this entire time was whether or not they defended. But when the three are on the floor together, they're plus 13. When you start fiddling around and just, put LeBron and Kyrie, they're unguardable. And the offensive numbers are good as we expected, and the defensive numbers are now coming in. So Cleveland's real. The Clippers are the anomaly. I keep buying in and buying in and buying in, and I don't know why I do it. They look like a petulant bunch of punks last night, and then afterwards, Chris Paul it's an interesting comment. I mean, he basically said that he wondered whether Lauren Holzkamp, the woman official, whether she was made out for this, which I don't actually know if it's a sexist comment or not, because I don't know whether he would have said that about a male rookie official, and rookie officials always struggle. So I don't know what that comment is, frankly. We can get really up in arms about it because of the fact that he had a woman's pronoun involved in there, but he was talking about a woman. Maybe he was treating her the same way he would treat anyone, and then there's actually nothing sexist about it at all. So I don't really know what to take of that comment. I'm not going to go knee jerk on this one. I'd have to hear it first of all, and then I'd have to really be able to dig in and figure out whether he would have said that. If it's a comment he would never make about a male official, well, then we have a problem. But frankly, male officials get criticized all the time too. I mean, he's going to be fined. He's going to be fined if he said that about a male or a female. He should be fined the same that he would be for saying it about a male or female. Jacques Vaughn has been removed from his position in Orlando. That was kind of one of the original Greg Popovich coaching tree hires, but he never seemed to come out with the same kind of element as some others, and that was not a great situation, I would say. Also, I think it's a little unfair in the sense of how they're building. It's similar to where we are. They have a long way to go, and but they have not been performing well. So Jacques gone. I don't want to get into whether Orlando should or should not have fired Jacques Vaughn. We'll see whether it makes any difference to them. But they've got a bunch of young talent. They're very similar to us. It's difficult to do. They don't have a star player. They don't have anybody as good as Gordon, I don't think. But it's very difficult. Interesting little note, by the way. Hornets win again last night. Last 20 games, the Hornets are the number 2 defensive team in the NBA. They're number 29 offensively, but they're back to playing defense. They're the number 2 defensive team in the NBA. A little misleading because they play the East all the time, which gets us to let's silver the NBA. Adam Silver came out and said that 2 things, and we talked about yesterday on Tip-Off, and now it's become a national story. And the 2 things are, one, it sounds very clear that they are going to change the schedule to limit the back-to-backs, whether it's to shorten the preseason, lengthen the schedule in some way, that they're going to limit the back-to-backs. Okay, one way to do it is get rid of some games. So I've come up with 2 different concepts, and here's the 3-part theory of what my system would do for the NBA. One is I do think we need to have some rivalries. I think there needs to be – I actually like divisions. I know they seem outdated, but is there actually a way to bring divisions back so that they're somewhat important and that you actually have a rivalry with Portland or Oklahoma City or whomever to some level? So we have 6 divisions of 5. The first proposal is that you play everyone in your division 4 times like you do, and then there are 5 other pods, right? So if you look at the league and just keep the league the same in divisions, the way they are right now, you have the Atlantic, the Central, the Southeast, the Pacific, and the Southwest. And each year you would play one of those other pods, each team, home and away twice. Okay? So it could be, and it's random. So, one year it's the Pacific and the Atlantic, which, would be cool because then Steph Curry comes to us twice. And frankly, if you're in the Southeast and you have Pacific twice, then you get Steph Curry twice instead of only once. The downside here is there's an increased travel, but I don't think the travel's that bad, frankly, with charters and everything else that we have. And then you play the other 3 pods, each home and away, and this would come out to 80 games. All right, so now I'm getting rid of a back-to-back because I just take away 2 games from the schedule. We play 80 games. Every team loses 1 home game. It's $1 million. There's some reduction that probably has to take place there in the new collective bargaining agreement, but no big deal. I like it. I think it adds a change to the schedule. Every year the schedule is a little different. You play some teams differently, but also it means that everybody in your division is playing the same amount of teams, and you're intermixing the teams. One thing I think is unfair is that the East is so bad that what we'll see happen here, and I give Atlanta credit, they had their way with the West. But what you're going to see now is that these teams go and beat up on their own division. Like, Portland or Toronto is 33-17. They're 23-10 against the East, and they're 10-7 against the West. 10-7. Chicago is 12-9 against the West and 30-20 against the Cleveland is 12-9 against the West. Like, I want to see a more balanced, fair schedule. This is the best I can come up with. Now, the other scenario here is that we're going to eventually play some of these little mini tournaments during the season that Adam Silver wants to play, in which case then you play your division 4 times. you play 2 divisions 3 times. So you play, and it would intermix, and maybe you do the same thing for 2 years in a row. And so if we had the Central and let's say we were Central and Pacific as our 2 primary pods that year, you would play each of those teams a combined 30 times, the 10 teams, and you would just split who you're playing 2 times at home and once away. And then you would play the other 3 divisions, so the other 15 teams, similar to you do in the Eastern Conference right now, you would play them a total of twice each. And you'd end up with 76 games, and that would allow for a 6-game pod to take place somewhere else. Or if you want to increase divisions and you want to get back to 80 games, you play everyone inside your division 5 times. Again, playing some home 3, some home 2, increase that division level, get back to 80, and maybe you do that with the pod. As I said yesterday, I actually think everybody should probably start the year overseas, and your pod should go play an intermixed tournament around that area of that continent or something, and then you and those are your extra, maybe those are your extra 4 games that get you to 80. So we go overseas, we reduce the schedule, we lengthen the schedule out a little bit, and we get rid of some of our back-to-backs. I think it's equally important for us then to open up the playoffs in this fashion, the way that Adam's talking about the 16 teams. I'll tell you what it looks like right now, as it is to balance the schedule. I think you've got to balance the schedule as well. If you don't balance the schedule, then right now the fact that the East plays the East is as big an advantage for them if you're going to equally seed the playoffs. So I think you've got to start moving how you schedule this thing as well. And I think there's a real value, frankly, for if you have Kevin Durant, there's no reason why the Western Conference teams should all get Kevin Durant more often than New York and Boston and Philadelphia. We need to intermix that a little bit. If the playoffs were to start today, here would be the brackets. Golden State would be the 1 seed facing the 16 seed Oklahoma City in the first round. How incredible would that be? And in that same 4-team bracket, San Antonio would play Dallas. That's ridiculous. The Bulls would open up against the Portland Trailblazers. So there you have your first schedule travel kind of strange thing. And the Houston Rockets would face the Milwaukee Bucks. That's not terrible travel. Phoenix Suns would play the Memphis Grizzlies, while the Washington Wizards would play the LA Clippers. All right, boom. There's a bad travel one right there. There's the problem with doing this in the conferences. The Cavaliers would play the Raptors, and the New Orleans Hornets would play the Atlanta Hawks. No travel at all. Play it out. Let's say Golden State actually beats Oklahoma City. San Antonio beats Dallas. Our second-round matchup is Golden State against San Antonio. The Portland Trailblazers beat the Chicago Bulls, and the Houston Rockets beat the Milwaukee Bucks, and all of a sudden, Final Four on that side is all West. It's Golden State versus San Antonio, Portland versus Houston, so no travel issue. Memphis beats Phoenix. The Clippers beat the Wizards, and you have no problem. The Cavaliers upset the Raptors, and the Atlanta Hawks and the Cavaliers play. You'd end up by the second round of the playoffs with 8 teams, 6 of them Western Conference, 2 of them Eastern Conference, but you don't have conferences anymore, so it doesn't matter. I don't have any idea who would win Golden State versus San Antonio. I have no idea who would win Portland versus Houston, but it's an awesome rematch of last year's matchup. We have Memphis versus the Clippers, which would be incredible, and the Cavaliers versus Atlanta. Talk about Final Four matchups in the quarterfinals that would be world class. I'm not even about to predict those, but you're eliminated now. You're done with any. The worst travel scenario you have here is Atlanta or Cleveland against the Clippers. And you could end up with San Antonio versus Houston, frankly, and therefore you don't really have a travel, or Portland against Golden State. In all the matchups we came up, if we just did it, we had 2 travel issues. We had, Chicago Bulls against Portland's not great. It's not awful, and we had only one East Coast West Coast scenario, which was the Wizards against the Clippers. Big deal. It certainly works. I do think that there's 3 things. I think if we could rebuild some rivalries inside the division, if we could balance the scheduling and then balance the playoffs and then lengthen the schedule. Those are the 4 things I would hope Adam Silver does with us. I'm glad that this is where we're heading. I think it's a great sign of who he is. That is your NBA 5, which was a little long. Let's go to the Jazz. I'm going to screen share this next segment with you because you won't believe me when I tell you this stuff. It's opposite day. here for the Utah Jazz. Everything that you think is going on with the team, the exact opposite is going on with the team statistically right now. It's very interesting. If you're listening to the narrative around the team, Cantor is terrible, Gobert is fabulous. Trey, I guess people have probably backed off a little bit, but there's the whole Trey element of things, it's worth taking a second and looking at the numbers. And I think because, one, there's probably, I find some of these stunning. I'm not going to lie to you at all. I find some of them just incredibly stunning. So let's dig into this together a little bit. This is a neat little program that I have access to that I'm sharing with you here. And this is how the Jazz team is doing with players on or off the court. So this is no surprise to us. For the season, when Rudy Gobert is on the bench, our defensive rating is 110, and when Rudy Gobert is on the floor, it's 102. But the entire team has made a defensive jump, and if I were to take the last 20 games, which is a pretty substantial sample size of games, when we've played 50 virtually, so it's the last 40%, you suddenly look, and our defensive rating with Gobert on the floor is a 102, and our defensive rating with Gobert off the floor is a 101.6. I swear my eyes are telling me that we are a much better team